All right. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to talk about today is playing air drums in JavaScript. But first of all, so my name is Gerard. I hope that you can see that. I'm a front-end developer. I'm currently working for Atlassian. I'm working on a product called Gerard, but I recently quit. I'm going to join Netlify. And I'm also going to move to Amsterdam. I'm currently in Sydney, so I'm in the middle of a massive personal shitstorm, but it's exciting, so it's cool. And apart from my day job, I'm also what is called a Google Developer Expert and a Mozilla Tech Speaker. So if you're interested in these groups, if you've never heard of them, they're tech community groups. So if you like sharing knowledge with blog posts or speaking at conferences or meetups, you can actually be part of these groups, and you might be supported by Google or Mozilla to pay for travel and things like that. But I can talk about that later if you're interested. What I'm specifically going to talk about today is about this. So I always wanted to play drums, but as you might know, drums are quite big and they're quite loud. And if you live in a small apartment, it's quite impossible. But then I realized that, well, there's another way that you can play drums. That means that you don't have to buy a massive drum set and you don't have to make a lot of noise. It's with these little sensors that are called free drums. So they have, you kind of like put them on your drumsticks, and you also have some for the feet, and they have accelerometer and gyroscope inside. So it means that when you're moving the drumstick around, you can actually play air drums. The main issue with this though, that's right. The main issue with this though is that when you buy them, they ask you to install software on your laptop or on your phone, and you have to use what they give you. So you kind of have to click on one of the pads and attach the sound and stuff like that. The thing is, I don't really like having to download software. I love the web, so I prefer websites. I don't like when I'm forced to use some of the memory on my laptop or on my phone to download something I didn't choose to download. But then I realized, well, the drumsticks or the sensors connect via Bluetooth. So then what I could do is that now you have the web Bluetooth API. So you could connect directly to the browser with these drumsticks using Bluetooth. So I didn't really know exactly what I was getting into because nobody had done that before, because usually people who bought these sensors just downloaded the Freedrum app and just went on with it. But I was like, well, I'm a developer, so I can probably do something about it. So the first step, I didn't start with the web Bluetooth API because all I knew is that I could connect via Bluetooth, but I didn't know any of the IDs of the sensors. I didn't know, in Bluetooth you have services and characteristics, and I didn't know the IDs of any of this, so I didn't know what to access. So I started with the Noble NPM module. So it's more on the Node.js side, it's not yet on the web Bluetooth side. I'll cover that a bit later. But with Noble, you can discover nearby Bluetooth devices. So you just start by requiring the module, then you start scanning devices around. And when you discover a device, you can log the name of it. So you just advertisement, local name, and I could see that it was logging FD2V8. FD for Freedrum. It was logging a few other devices, but I could see that it was like iPhones or something like that. So it was definitely not one of the Freedrum sensors. But as soon as I saw that there was something that looked like Freedrum, it was like, okay, cool. So it can detect that there's a sensor around. The thing is that was just a string, like a name. And in programming, you kind of know that you shouldn't really just, it's like usernames. People can have the same name. So you don't really want to use that. But what you could use that for is filter the devices that you receive. Oh, sorry. Okay. And then if you just store the name FD2V8 in a variable, you can actually use that to then log the peripheral ID, which is more of the unique ID that you can then use to identify that specific sensor. So when I was getting this, I was returning the actual UUID of that particular sensor. And then it's like, okay, cool. So now I know that I can scan around and I can find this device around. So then what I could do, again, you can store that device ID in a variable, and then you can start, you can actually, once you find that sensor is around, you can stop the scanning because, well, you're good, you know the ID of the device that you want to connect to, and then you can explore through that device. And I just called my function explore because, well, now I know the IDs of the device, but I don't exactly know what I can access. So what you can do then is, so in Bluetooth, there's a few different things that you can access. Sometimes you can access the battery level of your sensors, or what I discovered later in research is that the Freedrums can give you access to the raw data. or to the Bluetooth LE MIDI data. So I didn't really want the raw data because the raw data was giving me the actual raw data of the XYZ of accelerometer and gyroscope. And that wasn't really super helpful for me because I just wanted to be able to like hit something and play a note. So the way you can actually do that is with the Bluetooth LE MIDI protocol. And that's the UUID that you can find. So I didn't have to discover that. I just had to Google it. It's like, what's the standard ID for Bluetooth LE MIDI protocol? So I had it. And then with the peripheral that you find before when you were discovering nearby devices, you can call the connect function. Then you call the function that's called discover some services and characteristics, and you pass it the Bluetooth LE MIDI ID to say, I'm connecting to that device and I want to have access to the data that's related to Bluetooth LE MIDI. And then inside you decide, so once you connect to that service, you get characteristics, which is going to be the data coming back from that service. And you have to subscribe to it to say every time that I'm changing data because I'm hitting in a different space, subscribe to the notification that you get from that sensor. And then on read, you're gonna get data that's like you just call that event.toJSON data, and you can log that. And what you're gonna get then in the terminal is something like that. So you're gonna get you're subscribed, and all of a sudden you get an array of integers when you move the sensors around. So that was for the way where I started to discover that using the novel npm module. So that was more in Node.js. But to do it in Web Bluetooth, so to do it directly in the browser, it's quite similar, just a little bit different. So the steps are kind of the same, it's just the syntax is a bit different. So you have an options object where, as a filter for a name, so I passed it the name as a string this time because in the browser, I'll show you a bit later in the demo, you actually have a pop-up that shows you the devices around, and it was easier for me to say, okay, I know that the device around, I can identify that FD2 V8 is a sensor. If I was just logging the IDs, I wouldn't actually know. I'll show you a bit later. But then I'll pass it as well the Bluetooth LE MIDI, so the same way as I did in Node.js. And then, okay, I can't see myself. So then, yes, I request the devices around. As soon as I find one with the right option, so with the right name, I connect to it. And then I get back a connection, so I get the primary service, which is the Bluetooth LE MIDI, so the same thing. Then the thing that was a little bit different here is that I actually had to know the ID of the BLE MIDI characteristic, but that I had to Google it as well. It's not, that's something that's standard. So if you just Google what's the characteristic of BLE MIDI, you'll get the UUID. So you get that characteristic, you connect to it, and then you call the start notification. So instead of saying subscribe, you call the start notification method. That is the same. So every time that the data changes from when you hit in a different space with the drumstick, it's going to be listening to that. And then when the characteristic value changes, you can call another function. So I just called it handle data. You get an event object, and you can call event.target.value, and you'll get the exact same array that you got in Node.js. So it means that to discover Bluetooth devices, you can do it either in Node.js or in the browser in Web Bluetooth. So as I said, you get something like this. So you get an array of 5 integers. But the thing is that when I was researching MIDI, I only thought that MIDI was only giving you 3 values, and all of a sudden I had 5. So I didn't really know what to do with it. So let's go through it a little bit. So in normal MIDI, I thought that you were getting basically a MIDI channel, a note, and the velocity. But here in BLE MIDI, you actually get 5. So you get a header, a timestamp, a status, a data, and data. That's what they call it. But the thing is, we don't care about the 2 first ones because they're always the same anyway, and you don't use them. I actually don't know what they do. What we care is about the 3 last ones, so the same ones that you get in normal MIDI. So what are they? The status is going to be the comment. So 137 is a note off, so when you're not hitting anything. And 153 is going to be a note on. So when you receive this data, you know that when you receive 153, it's because you hit one of the sensors, one of the fake, air drums. The data here is going to be the MIDI note. So 50, you actually can find a table on Google of what they actually represent. I don't remember what 50 is, but you can map that to a sound later on in your JavaScript. And then the last one is the velocity. 0 is if I'm actually not moving, there's no force. And 127 is the maximum. So if you hit very hard, it's going to give you 127. And this can actually represent the volume of your sound when you actually play. So I thought I would try to show a little demo. I'm a bit in presentation mode, so I don't know if that's going to work. So Let me try. I brought them with me. I'm just going to do the hands. I'm going to have to put that down. So I think if I speak loudly, it's fine as well. Oh, I can't see what I'm doing. Okay. I'm going to have to. No, did I not write on the? Shit, I don't know where I am. Okay, somebody's gonna have to help me. I need to, do you see the green button that says, that says to like, should I go a bit more left? Yeah. Yeah, okay, but now I need to drag it back here and then drag it back there. I don't know how people do with presentation note usually. Okay. I'm just not gonna do full screen. So, okay, so my Bluetooth, so the sensors are off for now. So if I turn one up, and the sound should be on, okay. So I'm gonna turn one of the sensors on, and if I go here, so there's no, okay, so here you see why I use the name instead of the ID, because now I know, okay, that I know that this is one of the sensors. So if I pair, yes. Okay, and now if I turn the other one on, I should have another one. Yay, and it's not paired yet. So if I pair, oh, no, yes. Okay, so, so I'm not gonna play because, all right, yay. That's it. So that's, I'm not gonna actually play. I haven't had the time to rehearse something that I think would be worthy of you listening to it. But I totally lost where my slides are now because the browser is. So if I close that, is it gonna go back to? No. I lost my slides. Okay, let me go back. That's okay. This is really weird. I'll never do presentation mode ever again. Let me just do the display thing. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. No. I will go back here and just do this. Yes, okay. So just quickly, let's talk about the limitations. You might have seen one of it when I was trying to hit and it was not giving me the sound that I wanted. So one of the limitations is that the IDs that you find when you scan, they change over time. Because for security reasons, the ID of your device is not going to be always the same, because if you know what ID it is, it means that anybody can connect to it. So of course, with sensors for drums, there's not that much security thing. You can't really steal any data. Nobody cares about my air drums. Really, you're not going to hack it. But usually in Bluetooth, they change the IDs over time so that you can't just know in advance how to connect to a device. But it means that when I created the framework to interact with the sensors the first time, I thought, oh, I'm just going to, open source it, and it wasn't working for some people because they couldn't discover the devices because I hard-coded the UIDs inside. So it's one of the things I didn't know at the time, and now I know. I'm not yet able to reset the position of the sensors. So one of the services that you can connect to when you connect to these sensors is also, so at the moment, if I hit here, I have a hi-hat, and here I have something else. But you can also have access to reset the position of the sensors. At the moment, my drums only have like 4 different pads, but you could have 6 or 8 or whatever. You can really do anything around you. But at the moment, I'm just subscribing to the notification, but I can also later actually subscribe to a service to set the position of my sensors. And then I would be using the raw data to say, okay, from, I don't know, -10 to 10, then this would be a hi-hat and this would be something else. And I could attach sounds to different places, but I haven't had the time to do that. And then finally, it's not always accurate, as is air drums. It's actually hard to remember where things are. And sometimes depending on what sensor you connect first, it's like, I don't always know, is this one is gonna be a hi-hat, and sometimes I have to do that and it's not the right stuff. And sometimes weirdly, it's gonna just be totally out of place and I'm gonna have to hit here, which makes no sense. So I haven't, oh, sorry, I have forgot that. So I haven't actually figured out yet how to make it a bit more accurate, but that's one of the like downfall, but also it means that I can actually play air drums without having to travel with massive stuff. So, you know, I'll be okay with accepting that downfall if it means I can get better at playing drums. But what is next? There's a few things that I would like to do that I haven't had to do, haven't had the time to do yet, is I'd like to actually use the raw accelerometer and gyroscope data for generative music. So at the moment, I'm just using the MIDI notes to say, if I'm here, play that sound, and if I'm here, play that sound. But if I was using the raw data, I could actually just, you know, move like that and use a total 3D kind of coordinates to generate different things. Or I could even generate other kind of visuals instead of just, when I hit here, it just triggers something. I could actually even draw in space or do movement recognition or all of the things like that. As soon as you have access to raw data, you really do whatever you want. And then the second one that would be pretty cool is adding haptic sensors for pressure. So a lot of people, you know, when they see that, they say, oh, it's not like real drums. I'm kind of like, well, I know, I can see it's not like real drums. But I know that the main issue is like not feeling the haptic, like the feedback of pressure. But if you were adding a sensor at the end here that would feel the velocity of when you're hitting, you could actually have a vibration sensor that would give you the same force back. So you would actually feel like you're hitting. But that's just an idea. I don't think I'll have the time to work on it. So if anybody wants to do that for me, that'd be great. But it is a possibility to actually mix the MIDI data and the velocity to have feedback on the vibration sensor at the end. Yeah, I just have a few resources if you actually want to have a look at this. So the free drum sensor, the framework is open source. There's a few things that need to be fixed, but you can still play with it. And I just added a few links to frameworks if you want to do more MIDI stuff. I didn't explain how MIDI works because I don't know it very well myself. But there's quite a few frameworks where you can, at the moment, I'm just triggering an MP3 sample when I'm hitting different zones, but you could actually create your own notes with stuff like Howler or MIDI.js and things like that. And that was pretty much it. That was just like a quick kind of talk about how I put that together. Thank you.